Another game of Karpov's, this time against Spassky. And we have a familiar lineup of heavy pieces on the IQP. Not just the heavy pieces though. Here we've got the bishop as well joining in. And this is a real problem for Spassky. No chance of a pawn sacrifice here to get rid of the d-pawn. And you can see that his pieces are tied to the defence of the d-pawn. Very dangerous indeed. Moreover, this is a wonderful minor piece, the bishop on c3, cutting down across black's king. Black is horribly passive here, but you still have to tip your opponent over the edge. And Karpov managed to do that with the help of this pinning idea. So first of all, he played pawn to f5, and of course the bishop had to retreat. And that means that the rook on d7 is, no longer protected. So there is a potential pin here. Well, not just a potential pin, there's a pin. So pawn takes pawn is obviously impossible because the rook hangs. So this is basically exactly the same as this idea we had in the very first position I showed with the rooks and the pawns. So white wins a pawn. And let's see how Karpov finished the game very quickly. Took a pawn. Now, there is a danger here. If black manages to blockade, let's say with bishop to d6, that would blunt all these pieces. We're going to be seeing this idea much later on when we discuss central pass pawns. So white has to act very, very quickly to ensure that he actually gains some positional benefit from his material advantage. And Karpov did that very well indeed with rook to e2. The rook's job is done on the d file. So now he switches to the e file where he can see that there's potential play against black's king. You've still got this beautiful bishop pointing down here. b5, and now great move. Great sacrifice. d6. And white wins material. And b3. And after the queen lets go of the rook here, so queen retreats, let's say queen c8, then we can actually capture, and there's no problem with the rook here. If we just go back a couple of moves, instead of b5, bishop d6 is interesting. This idea of blockading the pawn. Now, there's a problem here, of course, because f6 starts to look very sensitive, and of course you can exploit that. I think rook e6 is a good move. So clear threat here, and if black captures, then this is really crushing with the two pawns. The problem is that black, black has no space actually because of these central pawns, and white can turn to the king. For example, here, and queen f5 followed by bishop e4, and well, you can see a variation I give there, but white is doing very well indeed. So there we go, another beautiful Karpov victory against the IQP. So I think the major ideas there are using the heavy pieces to line up against the isolated queen pawn, but also being aware that once you capture that pawn, you have to react very, very quickly in case it's blockaded and your opponent sets up a defence. Okay, this is all very well, but how do we get into these wonderful positions with the major pieces bearing down on the IQP? Well, I'd like to now examine the Korchnoi-Karpov game that I showed first of all in great detail. I think it's such an instructive game. Okay, see you in the next clip for that.